Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boy, does it smell good.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's good.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's Markets. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, in 15 minutes. We're working towards the weekend. It is a Thursday. Hope you all are having a good one. Thanks for hanging with us. Dennis Allen has been very quiet since being let go as the head coach of the Saints. It's been about 9-10 weeks now since DA was let go. And he's kept a pretty low profile, as you would imagine. But he did reemerge on Jay Glazer's podcast earlier this week, and I thought had some interesting things to say. And so we'll hear some of those clips here from Dennis Allen. One was about from Jay Glazer's podcast about the day that Dennis Allen was fired after losing that game to the Panthers.
I was let go on Monday morning. Mickey came into my office, closed the door, said, "Let's talk." And Mickey was not really in favor of this move. Right. And we talked and we had a really good conversation. So then he kind of said, well, let me, there's a couple of guys I want to talk to the coordinators. You know, I want to talk to Darren Rizzi, who's, right. You know, he's going to have.
Was it you want to talk to him? Or
no, he wanted to talk to them. And, and I said, look, I want to be able to address the staff. I want to be able to talk to the staff. Okay. And so I had a meeting at 10 o'clock with the coaches and told them, hey, look, this is what happened. This is I got to let go.
It's a hard conversation.
It's an awful conversation.
Yeah, that's a little peek behind the curtains there. And he knows that when that happens, and Will Wade talked about this when he was let go. Will Wade had been making a lot of money, and he felt like he was going to be just fine. But you've brought in staffers who, yes, are well paid relative to average Joe, but are not as well compensated as you and are now going to be very likely out of a gig very soon and are going to have to uproot their families and change course. And football coaches, to a degree, sign up for that. And to Dennis Allen's credit, he stayed in New Orleans for a really long time. Like, that just doesn't happen very often. And so he was able to kind of put roots down here for a long time, but a lot of coaches don't. Like, Clint Kubiak's going to show up in February and have to leave again in February. And so there's a human side to that Dennis Allen absolutely wanted to express to those guys, because the second a head coach is let go, the staff is very, very likely to follow. And he felt guilty about that, as he said in the podcast, and wanted to speak with the coaching staff. Now, the question is, did you address the team? And Dennis Allen spoke to that point.
In the world that we live in nowadays, like, things happen and it becomes now public knowledge. Right. And it happens fast. And so as a prideful man, I don't want to be walking out of the parking lot with 1,000 cameras on me, you know, right. and giving that, right, you know, part of the story. So most of my stuff with the players ended up being, you know, sending a text, okay, you know, or a call.
And I get that to an extent. I mean, when that happens, it's going to get out really quick because the reporters for that team have a lot of contacts within the organization, and that's going to come out fast. And the second that comes out, you're going to have every television station and every news reporter with a Twitter camera pointed at you as you walk out, you know, with boxes or in a generic sweatshirt, and get in the car and they're screaming, "Dennis, you have anything to say? Dennis, you," and it becomes a whole thing in the parking lot. And I understand Dennis Allen wanting to go, you know, I'd like to address the team, but I'm just going to hop in the car and go, and I'll have the opportunity to speak with these guys, you know, via text or via phone call. I think that conversation changes when a head coach leaves, specifically in the college game, which happens all the time. You've gone in and recruited young men to come play for you, and you feel like you owe an explanation as to what's next and why. I think that's reasonable. When you've been let go, you've been fired, and you've got a lot of guys in that locker room that are going to be back next year in New Orleans. You understand that there was a little bit of a fracture in the locker room based on what we found out in the coming weeks. I don't blame Dennis Allen for having that conversation with Mickey Loomis, going to the coaches that he went to, expressing them what happened and that he was obviously sorry about that, and then just getting in the car and heading home. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Would it have been crazy for him to address the team and then to go out into the horde of reporters? No. But I don't have any issue with him kind of leaving the way that he did. They went deeper into kind of Dennis Allen reflecting on his time in New Orleans. You've got time to do that. If this was a fresh wound, if there was some sort of press conference right after, like that's a tougher spot. But this is 2.5 months in the rearview mirror, and so DA was kind of asked, was this a failure for you?
When I think about getting fired, I really think about, well, look, as this is your company, this is your organization, you have the right to do whatever you want to do with that. And I don't look at it as, I failed. I look at it as they just decided they wanted to go in a different direction. And if I'm not what they want, I think there's a lot of spots that I will be what they want.
Right.
Okay. That's one way to look at it. You'd lost 7 games in a row in year 3. You'd never made the playoffs in a bad division. It's certainly not a success. And this is semantics, and it doesn't matter. I think there are a lot of coaches, players that would say, yeah, I failed there. And I think there are a lot of coaches that would say, they wanted to go in a different direction and I'll have an opportunity. It doesn't matter which way you view it. As I analyze the New Orleans Saints and I look at Dennis Allen's tenure, I would suggest that was a failure. But it doesn't mean he has to acknowledge that is the way that he feels about it. It's just interesting to hear that perspective. I believe if I sat Dennis Allen down for an interview that was solely about his time with the Saints, Jay Glazer's podcast is about mental health. It's actually entitled Mental Wealth. Jay has famously dealt with some mental health issues very publicly and has been kind of a champion for that. And that's the point of this. And I think a lot of the things that he talks about, and certainly in this aspect, was talking about the mental aspect of this and not necessarily, why'd you go for that 4th down or why couldn't you scheme up something better to stop the Panthers? That's not really the point of this. It's more about the process and how you handle things emotionally. And I think if I sat Dennis Allen down, he would say, look, we had a good football team. We showed that through 2 weeks. We got hurt and we couldn't recover from it. And I could have done some things a little bit better, but ultimately, with the injuries that we had, it was insurmountable. I think he would honestly say that and believe it. And there's an element of truth to that, for sure, I believe. I also think that you're not in a position to recover from injuries in that league when you consistently bail on draft picks, trade up, not stock the shelves with enough talent. You're relying too much on undrafted free agents and free agents that are aging and past their prime, and the roster reconstruction was bad. And I don't know how much of that is Dennis, how much of that is Mickey, how much of that is Lauscha, how much of that is whoever. But the job was not done well. And if he wants to call it a failure or the organization going in a different direction, the direction's got to be away from whatever they were doing, which is his gig, and I do call that a failure. Now, Dennis Allen, to kind of wrap up the sound here, was talking about the job being more than about managing people.
Oh, it's definitely more about managing people because, and again, there's so much more that goes into it than just football. In the world that we live in with social media and everything that every person does in the National Football League is lived out in the public eye. And so you're constantly having to deal with what other people's thoughts and opinions are about you. Right. And so, again, I think that's where you just got to be able to talk to your players and get them to understand, look, again, control the controllables, control the things that you can control, because A, you're never going to make everybody happy. B, you can't control the way somebody is going to feel about you. And that's easier said than done.
That's an interesting soundbite for a lot of reasons. I think in time, we'll find out more about Dennis Allen's time in New Orleans from the players' perspective. You saw the tweets come out, some of the quotes come out in the weeks that followed, especially after those 2 wins when Dennis Allen was let go, that something was broken between Dennis Allen and the team. I can't personally speak to when that started, if it was immediately when Dennis Allen became the head coach, or if it was because they weren't having success and then the bottom kind of fell out and then the bottom really fell out and that's what triggered it.
I've heard a lot of people mention the Falcons game last year.
Yeah, the Falcons game. And to me, I understand the premise. I get it. And the guys who've played football feel very much on the player's side about that. To me, as a person and someone who pays attention to sports, like, I just didn't care about that. Like, I understand that there's a decorum and a sportsmanship element to it. And look, if he called in a play to kneel the ball or to sit on it, and the players just went behind his back and scored an extra touchdown at the end because they needed to get Jamal Williams a touchdown, like, I don't see any value in that. I don't really get it. And I think it's okay if Dennis Allen said, look, that's on me. Like, we didn't mean to do that. And then you just leave it. And apparently it just fractured things between the coach and the player. It just didn't seem like that big a deal. Now, if you come out as the head coach and you say, yeah, we had 2 guys, they don't know what the hell they're doing, they shouldn't really even be on this team, and you just completely eviscerate the team individually and you individually call players out, like, okay, that's over the line. Saying that's not how we operate here, and I told him that, I apologized, and then just kind of left it at that. Like, having a massively visceral reaction to that and causing it to become the downfall of the locker room seems extreme to me on the players' part. But the guys I know that have played, Hester, Brandon Taylor, the guys I know that have been in that locker room, side with the players on that. And look, they know much better than me. But that seemed like an overreaction by me on the players' part. And at some point, it just fell apart there. And I do, in a sense, feel for Dennis Allen with all the stuff playing out on social media so publicly with so many players. That's a part that's just tough to manage. And it goes away really quickly when you're winning games. And they just weren't winning any games. So it just magnified and magnified and magnified. And you got Michael Thomas chirping all the time and all that kind of stuff. And it became a snowball that got so big the momentum was unstoppable. And the Saints did what they had to do. The one part of that segment that I didn't harp on that I'll finish with here is that Mickey didn't agree with the decision. That's troubling if you're a Saints fan, that he felt like it was not time to make a move. I mean, think about what you got a chance. You got a chance to evaluate your roster playing with a renewed sense of confidence. You got a chance to evaluate a head coaching candidate. You got a chance to evaluate some stuff that could work when this clearly could not. And for him not to be able to see that is troubling. You've got to hope that he does see it now and that the Saints can move on in a completely different direction. But the podcast is Mental Wealth with Jay Glazer. If you want to check out all of Dennis Allen's sound, it's about 30 minutes worth. I thought that was some of the interesting pieces of it. So if you're looking for our Saints coverage, you can always find it. Hunt on Saints, wherever you find your sound. When we come back, voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. Just so many thoughts with those out in California dealing with those wildfires. My brother-in-law is, in fact, one of them who's got his car packed and ready to evacuate if that becomes necessary. You never know when something like that's going to come, and we certainly don't deal with wildfires down here, but we do deal with catastrophe. And if you don't have the proper insurance, and then all of a sudden you look up and you've got that catastrophe, you've just compounded the issue. Make sure before that awful instance occurs, whether it's a lawsuit or a car accident or a cyber breach or a hurricane, that you're covered insurance-wise. The Highland Insurance Group can help you out with that. Jonathan Carbo and his team are awesome to work with. If you're a commercial business owner and you've got a property and casualty program that you don't know much about, except you know that premium withdrawal comes every month, take a look at it. And if you don't know what you're looking at and you don't trust your broker to go through with it, talk to the Highland Insurance Group. Call Jonathan Carbo. Visit him online and make sure your insurance program works for you. They've got dozens of markets. Can fit whatever it is that you need in your insurance program. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Tigers 0-2 in Southeastern Conference play on the hardwood. Lost up at Missouri on Tuesday. They'll hit the road again for Oxford, Mississippi coming up on Saturday. Chris Blair will be there for all of it on the call with John Brady on the LSU Sports Radio Network. He's always with us on Thursdays via the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Chris, how we doing?
Doing great, Hunt. Doing well, man. It's fast and furious. Once that conference season starts, man, they just start lining up, and it's one place and then the next.
I like that a little bit more than December, where they play like once every 8 days, and it just feels like the next game's never going to show up. Although those were wins and they were fun. These have been a little bit less pleasant the last couple of games. I was writing a piece for LouisianaSports.net today, and I was going through some of the issues LSU's had statistically, and one of them that I can't seem to rectify is that in both of these games, Vanderbilt and Missouri, the second half numbers are pretty good. They've just gotten off to such a bad start, especially with turnovers. Is there anything that you're seeing on courtside that looks different in the second half?
You know, it looks like, I was talking to somebody this morning, in the early moments of the game, there just seems to be kind of a wide-eyed look. It happened against Vanderbilt, and it happened again at Missouri the other night. I mean, it just seems like, you know, they look so much better equipped to kind of handle the pressure. I mean, these are the first three conference games, while they're not the top of the SEC as far as wins and losses, and maybe not even talent on the roster. They are teams that are defined by their defense, and they're very active, and they switch on ball screens, and when you go left or right, they're right there in your chest, and you know, it just seems like we're trying to dribble a little too much early in the game and try to make one-on-one plays instead of trying to get them off balance and moving side to side from the lane. And when you go back, and I was talking to Coach McMahon last night, you know, you go back and look at some of the success. It's not as if this is the first time they've seen teams that'll do this. Now, granted, the SEC is going to have probably more talented defenders, but there's a way to do it. And it's not, you know, it's you know, as Coach McMahon says, when you draw two, you've done your job. Now get rid of the ball. There's somebody open. And it just seemed to take some time. And before you knew it, you were down, you know, big numbers and eventually down 15 at the half. I thought they did a much better job in the second half. I mean, that's how they got a couple of big threes. That's how they got Curtis Givens going offensively. Cam Carter was the recipient of a couple of inside-out threes, again, using the pass, not the dribble. And I know, you know, we've got some guys who certainly can drive downhill, but what they could do in November and December is not what they're going to be able to do, obviously, of the last two games, and certainly probably for the rest of the schedule.
You mentioned Givens. Jordan Sears got in foul trouble. Ultimately, Coach McMahon said, "You're going to sit next to me," and he let the freshman go. And he got a lot of leash on Tuesday night. What did you see, and what did Coach McMahon have to say about him on last night's show?
Well, you broke up for a second. Who were you asking me about?
Yeah, Curtis Givens got a lot of leash in the second half on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's really, you know, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, the fact is, I mean, he's always looking for the better shot. I mean, there's been times early on, again, he's a true freshman, where he's trying to make that great pass and take a good shot and make it a great shot. But he does have the ability to score. And, you know, that was one of the things, if there was a silver lining in all of it, is, you know, I don't think LSU, I mean, they're going to try to deny Cam Carter. We saw Vandy do it in Saturday's game when, you know, again, he hit the three to tie it, and then he didn't score another point until it was under a minute and the game was already decided. So you're going to have to find some more offense. And right now, the opponents, I think, and listening to Coach John Brady watching the two games, kind of the MO, and I don't think Ole Miss is going to veer from that, is they're basically going to try to jam the backcourt, and they'll take their chances one-on-one with the front court players for LSU. So when you've got Cam Carter and you got Jordan Sears, and you got a night like Tuesday where Jordan struggled, got into foul trouble early, didn't play a lot of minutes, I mean, where are you going to find that scoring from? So, again, it's nice to see Curtis Givens start to look for his shot. And as coaches said, I mean, they know he is a scorer, but he's got that point guard mentality. So, you know, I mean, they're going to have it's every night. It's going to have to be more than one guy. And I thought we saw glimpses of that in the non-conference, and obviously the competition has stepped up. But that's going to have to continue, and you know, hopefully he will grow from that because he is a really good shooter. And you know, again, you're going to have to get Victorious Miller kind of adjusted to the SEC. He struggled through the first two games when he was really coming into his own, you know, in the non-conference. So those are two guys that I think, you're not expecting them to bring 20 points a game, but they're going to have to be able to find a way to score.
Corey Chess made a move right out of the chute on Tuesday, hit baseline, and just slammed it down, and I never saw it again. I was like, God, that looked really good, and they're dying for somebody to get the ball in the block and make a play to get a bucket. I sense that Corey Chess has the ability to do that. It's just got to develop. Do you remember the play I'm talking about, and kind of what have you seen from him?
Oh yeah, I mean that was we
First
thought
basket.
we were well on our way. Yeah, the first 2 points of the game. I mean, he just bullied his way down the baseline, as you said, and just said, I'm not going to be denied. And with his jumping ability, you look at later on in the second half, he missed a tap in with the hand, and then before anybody else could leap off the floor, he had gone down to the floor, back up, and jammed it down. I mean, that's the type of incredible skill he has. And I think some of it. I like the fact that Corey is not a guy that says, okay, I'm going to bring the ball up top of the key and then I'm going to try to break a guy down on the dribble. That's not quite where his game is yet, and he certainly isn't looking to shoot threes. But he has the ability to change things inside the lane and from the box, and I think he's going to have to do that. And again, you hang your wishes on, I wish that guy could do that every single night, and then you forget there's still just a handful of games he's played in. So I think that's going to come, and it only will come as he gets a little more comfortable doing that. But yeah, goodness knows, he certainly has the ability to get up in the air with anybody in this league.
There was a time in my SEC basketball watching life where you knew if you were going to Rupp, you were up against it. You probably knew if you were going to the O-Dome in Gainesville, you were going to be up against it. And probably Knoxville, it was going to be tough. That's a big old barn. But a lot of the other places, not the most intimidating environment. That's really not the case now. I'd imagine with the way that Ole Miss has played, they stomped Arkansas last night. You're expecting a pretty good environment in the Pavilion on Saturday?
Yeah, I think they're pretty fired up about what Chris Beard does. He's interactive with the campus, and he's just a guy that kind of gravitates people to the program. And he's another one that, they create that pressure environment. So I'm sure coming off the big win against Arkansas and Fayetteville and LSU coming to town, you better believe Ole Miss, their folks will be there, and who knows, you may see Morgan Freeman sitting courtside.
And the next time we're at home will be on Tuesday against Arkansas. We won't talk to you before then. But I was listening to an Arkansas podcast earlier this morning after that loss to Ole Miss, and they were going, we got some good players, but I just don't see a lot of adjustments, not a lot of X's and O's, not a lot of changes. And I'm imagining as you hear that, you've got some friends on the Bluegrass that are going, yeah, we probably could have told you about that.
It happens every single night. I'll get a string of texts that are like, you think they got buyer's remorse yet? You think Tyson wants to turn that back in? And, it's interesting because, obviously following Kentucky basketball since the time I was born, it was the last couple of years in Lexington, it just wasn't quite the same. And, you watch Arkansas this year in some of the games they've struggled. The TV folks get the coaches, 2 or 3 times a game to talk to them. And Coach Cal will say, well, this is why we're getting beat at the 3-point line because, we're not playing off ball screens and we're not fighting through them or whatever the case may be. And yet the next 5 minutes will roll off and you'll realize they're not making any changes. So I don't know. It seems to be a disconnect because obviously he hasn't forgotten basketball, but they're just not being able to get, the execution part down. But, again, Arkansas will be fired up to play LSU. And I just don't think there's easy wins. And to your point, there were kind of those places that you knew you would have to have everything go your way to come out with a victory. And that's pretty much the way it is top to bottom. LSU, unfortunately, on Saturday was the only SEC team to lose at home.
Yeah.
So protecting the home court has been impressive. Missouri now, had won 11 in a row and defeated Kansas there, although I'm not sure Kansas is quite as good as maybe people thought preseason. But still, that's a quality win. And Ole Miss is the same way. They've defended their home floor extremely well. They haven't played a ton of games there. Again, Ole Miss, and I looked at Texas the other day, they haven't played a ton of home games either. They played a lot of those neutral site games and not necessarily road games. But, winning at home is a must, as it's always been in conference play, because it is going to be hard to drop one at home and then go try, as coaches say, steal one on the road. It's a lot tougher this year than it has been in a long, long time.
Safe travels up to Oxford. Y'all have fun, and we'll see you next week.
You got it.
That's Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers. He and John Brady on the call each and every ball game for LSU. They'll head to Oxford, maybe get some lunch at Ajax on the Square. Real good food there at Ajax. I want to go to the Pavilion. I want to go. maybe we'll get LouisianaSports.net on this. I want to go see some of these arenas in the SEC. I want to see the Pavilion. I want to see Auburn Arena. I obviously want to see some of these baseball arenas as well. I will go to see Rupp at some point before my time is done. But we gotta get LSU rolling from a basketball perspective, so we can get that in the budget for me to make a couple of basketball trips here and there. That's next on the list. I'll tell Coach McMahon to get that figured out. That'll be the motivation for the program moving forward. Get good enough to where Hunt takes road trips to some of these SEC environments. Probably not going to happen. We'll talk some LSU football coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Always my pleasure to tell you about One Bath and Closets. They're online at onebathandclosets.com. If you moved a couple of years ago, locked in an awesome interest rate, not real interested in kicking your 3.5 to the curb for 6.5, that doesn't mean you're stuck right where you are with what you got. You can do some renovation, and One Bath and Closets is happy to help you with all of it. They're a licensed contractor. They'll be the only call you make for a fully customized closet, for a fully customized bathroom, but it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. It can be something simple. Sometimes they don't have to knock out walls to put in a new closet. They can just use your space more efficiently. So you don't have to do a full-scale bathroom renovation. You can do a tub-to-shower conversion. If you don't ever use that tub, don't ever take a bath, well, take the tub out, put a glass walk-in shower in, changes the aesthetic and functionality of your bathroom. There's financing options available as well, 0% for 18 months if you qualify. It's all there online at onebathandclosets.com. Look at the pictures of their great work, see some testimonials from satisfied customers. Get that free consultation. It's free to chat with David Duvall about what he can do for you. It's One Bath and Closets online at onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Thursday shows brought to you by Rouse's Markets. Been baking king cakes for 65 years over at Rouse's Markets. King Cake Crew this year, how many think they're going to bake? It's sizable. They got plenty of locations. 600,000 king cakes they will bake this year during carnival season, which is right now. Is at the Rouse's Burbank and Lee on Friday. And you walk right in the front of the store. They're everywhere. One whole side was just the standard cinnamon. Then they had the flavored king cakes on the other side. Beck, I'll be honest, I'm not afraid to admit this. I like the flavored king cakes.
Yeah, I do too.
Give me the flavored king cakes. I know a lot of people are traditional. Just give me the goods. I'll take some filling in there.
No, I need some filling. Honestly, man, sometimes, if it's only cinnamon, sometimes it can get a little dry in there.
It can.
It's nice to have a little bit of filling. I think Bavarian is probably my favorite, but there's a lot of different options that go around.
I will say this. I sampled a king cake that was not from Rouse's yesterday. And it was one of these exotic flavors. It was terrible. I did not like it at all. I am pro flavored king cakes.
Yeah,
this was
crazy.
Not good. I love Rouse's king cakes though. Fantastic. If you want to send somebody a taste of Mardi Gras, Rouse's ships their award-winning king cakes anywhere in the continental U.S. All you got to do is go to Rouse's.com to order Rouse's.com. Rouse is the official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. I may stop on by Rouse's today and get a king cake. My wife is addicted to king cakes. And she's pregnant, so that's just a free-for-all on the king cake side. We may have to pick one of those up from Rouse's on the way home. All right, LSU football still in search of completing its roster for 2025, and we know that one of the places they are desperately searching is the secondary. My contention has been that they're not looking for a certain player. They're looking for a really good player, and they can be a little bit flexible, and I detailed last week why I think that Mansour Delane is kind of the X factor in that. If LSU finds a 6'2", 220-pound safety to plug in the back end that's really, really good, that's awesome. Mansour Delane can play corner. He can play down in the slot. That's great. If you find somebody that's an elite-level nickel, well, good. Then put him there at the nickel, and Delane can maybe go back and play some safety. I think he's the chess piece you can move around. So you're not looking at a cookie cutter here. You're just looking for really good players. And I do know that as of yesterday afternoon, that LSU had a good player on campus. That is Tamarcus Cooley. We talked last week about how the NC State defensive back would be on campus. He's 5'11", 205 pounds, and had a really good year at NC State. I wanted to check out the Pro Football Focus grades. And to be clear, as we talked about every Monday on this show, and as I wrote every Sunday on LouisianaSports.net, I realize what Pro Football Focus is. Sometimes it's really beneficial. Sometimes it may miss the mark. But, like, it's just a helpful, it's easy to read, quite frankly. Like, you can get a number graded to, like, how well they play. And Tamarcus Cooley's Pro Football Focus grades this year are really, really, really good. He was an 81.9 on defense. That would have been the second best defensive player on LSU's roster, right behind Braden Swinson. And it wasn't that he excelled just in one thing. Tamarcus Cooley graded 81.6 against the run. He graded 75.4 in tackling. Those are really high numbers. Like, there are a lot of Pro Football Focus grades in the 50s and 60s. And I see some in the 20s at times. He's an 81.9 overall, an 81.6 run, 75.4 tackling, and more importantly to me. Now, look, the run defense is important, tackling is important. You got to do that on defense. In coverage, he was an 83.4. He had 3 interceptions. He broke up 7 passes. These grades are excellent for him, and I think would be a really good addition should LSU be able to reel him in. Shea Dixon from On3 does an incredible job of covering recruiting. And one of the things he always says when he's on Matt's show or wherever you may find him, watch what recruits do, not what they say. And I think one of the biggest developments of this week was that Tamarcus Cooley went to Oxford and then went to Baton Rouge because he committed to Ole Miss in high school. There was an attraction there immediately. And then when he goes in the portal and you go to Oxford, you know that you're going to sit down with Lane Kiffin. You're going to see Vaught Hemingway, going to look at the football complex. They might take you out to the square. And eventually you're going to have a meeting with the Grove Collective and see how that goes. And for him to leave all of that and continue on and make that trip to Baton Rouge means it's not set in stone. And then you're going to meet with Brian Kelly, and you're going to tour football ops in Baton Rouge, and you're going to see Tiger Stadium, and then you're going to meet with Bayou Traditions. And now the fact that that meeting's going to happen or has happened, that's an encouraging sign for LSU. I don't know exactly where Tamarcus Cooley would fit into LSU's defense. Maybe he's a true safety that would go back there with Deshaun Spears. Maybe he's more of a nickel. I'm not sure. And that's really not of my concern right now. That's the coach's concern. My concern, and not really concern, that's the wrong word to use, but the more important storyline here is this is a good football player at a position of need that you have gotten to take a visit after the Ole Miss visit and give this a look. Now, whether he goes to Missouri for a visit, whether he goes to Kentucky for a visit, we'll see. I'm going to show my ego here and suggest that I'm not too concerned with Missouri or Kentucky. I don't think they're going to land him. If that happens, then I'll be surprised. Ole Miss can flex their muscles, and they've got 10-win seasons to show. And certainly Missouri's had a good go the last 2 years, relatively speaking. But I can't allow myself to sit here and think that you've got LSU on the table and Missouri on the table, and LSU's apparently loaded for bear and NIL, so Missouri would either match it or come up a little bit short of that, and you would pick to go play football at Missouri. That's my ego showing. I'm aware of that. It is what it is. I think this is an LSU and Ole Miss battle based on just what I know about those two programs, and the fact that he got to Baton Rouge, I think, is a big deal for LSU. This is a big one for LSU to close. I think he's a starter. I think he's an impact player at either nickel or safety. The Pro Football Focus grades and the statistics show me that he can cover, he can play the run, he can tackle. I like it. None of these are slam dunks. I will, for the foreseeable time, talk about the difference between Jarrett Bernard Converse and Deuce Chestnut and how they had similar accolades and similar backgrounds, and one came here and excelled and went to the NFL. One came here, didn't work out, and went back to Syracuse. I can't guarantee that Tamarcus Cooley's a slam dunk. I like the odds, though, and hopefully LSU can slam that door. If you're looking for our LSU content, you can find it on YouTube, Hunt on LSU. It's also wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on LSU. Search it. Like, subscribe, rate, review. We always appreciate y'all's help getting our content in front of as many eyeballs and ears as we possibly can. We'll come back and close out our Thursday show coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Genesis of Baton Rouge is the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana. If you're thinking, I've never been to Genesis, I've never even seen it. Well, look a little harder. It's right there on Airline Highway on Pico, across the street from Women's Hospital. Go on by the facility. You'll be blown away. I've been to a lot of dealerships in my day. When I was in the insurance business, I worked with auto dealers. And I've seen a lot of service aisles, and a lot of them aren't real pleasant to look at. This is the cleanest service aisle, the cleanest service department I've ever laid eyes on. It is remarkable what they've done over there at Genesis Baton Rouge. It's all part of the experience. It's a clean, first-class facility with great ambiance, great Wi-Fi, amazing coffee. It's an incredible staff, and it's a first-class line of vehicles at Genesis Baton Rouge. Highly recommend you go check them out, Airline at PQ. Get behind the wheel. You'll learn about the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. You'll learn about the 3 years of complimentary maintenance. Your experience will be fantastic, and you might just find yourself behind the wheel of a Genesis. It's a phenomenal line of vehicles, and we appreciate them being a great partner here of the Hunt Palmer Show. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
The Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling is underway. Make sure to check the leaderboard and your inbox to see if you qualify for the final round of picks and your shot at $1,000 cash and a $200 gift card from Hooters. Our grand prize winner will be notified January 13th next week. It's the Hooters College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge presented by Yingling at 1045ESPN.com. And you can also catch the college football semi-final tonight, Notre Dame and Penn State at 6:30. And then Ohio State and Texas tomorrow at 6:30. Your home for college football playoff and national championship is 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Appreciate them each and every week. Beck, you're not on record with a college football playoff pick for tonight.
No, I'm not.
There's an issue with that. We need to change it.
So you want me to pick who I think is going to win?
I would love that.
Okay, I'm going to pick Penn State.
You're on my team with that.
Even though I was not a believer for Penn State pretty much the whole year, including the
Boise State tricked you into believing?
Well, no, I just didn't. Even before in the Big Ten championship, I did not trust James Franklin, and I still kept saying I just don't trust him. But we'll see.
Did you see the press conference yesterday? It's getting a lot of pub.
I haven't seen it.
So James Franklin, I did not see the question that was asked, but they're both sitting up there. And
both coaches?
Both coaches.
Okay.
And James Franklin looks at Marcus Freeman and he's like, how old are you? And Marcus Freeman goes, 38. Like kind of deadpans. He's like, 38? I mean, look at the hairline on this guy. And a lot of people thought it was like him trying to big time.
No, he was
coach.
just, I don't think that's what it was.
A lot of people felt that way. Then he took a shot at Notre Dame and said, I think they should be in a conference.
Well,
I'm assuming, my guess is, because you know how coaches and athletes are, I'm betting Marcus Freeman got back to his team after that and said, we got to kick these dudes' butts. Like that,
yeah,
the press
possible.
conference didn't go, I'm sure that's what he did when it happened. I don't know if James Franklin was trying to do that or not.
I wouldn't think so.
I find James Franklin to be a quality football coach. I find his press conferences to kind of rub me a little the wrong way. I remember distinctly being at SEC Media Days. This was like 14 years ago. And he and Dan Mullen, when he was at Vanderbilt and Mullen was at Starkville, I felt like there was such a car salesman type deal going on with the selling me of Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. And I feel like that's perpetuated now that Franklin's at Penn State. But press conference is over. They got to play football tonight. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's show. Let's play Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, first one. Speaking of Penn State, Notre Dame. Penn State and Notre Dame have the best uniforms in college football. Take it or leave it.
I will leave it.
Just leave it alone.
I mean, you can't say LSU because we currently don't have a uniform.
We don't. We have no uniforms. The uniform means the same. We don't have that. We just got whatever the players feel like on a given Monday. Penn State's are incredible, phenomenal uniforms, unbelievable. When I was growing up, Notre Dame's pants and helmet were the same color.
Yeah.
Now they're really, really not, and it bothers me a little bit. But there is a classicness, a tradition to it that I very much appreciate. I will think the aesthetic tonight is fantastic, but I cannot put them 1 and 2.
No, I don't think I would either. Next one here, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but the TGL had their first match on Tuesday night, and they got the ratings back for it. It was actually just under 1 million viewers, which, to put that in perspective, is a larger audience than any live golf broadcast.
No
You'll be
joke.
happy to hear, Hunt.
It's on
CW.
TV, so that'll do it.
And also actually larger than last week's PGA Tour season opener, the Century, which you may not be super happy to hear, which was on Golf Channel and NBC, but the times were a little weird. But the TGL drawing some viewership. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Fine. I may not watch it, but they can do it. It's not taking anything away from me.
Yeah.
Liv is taking away from me, actively taking away from me. Did you see Kevin Na today, by the way? I forgot to mention that.
I didn't.
He thinks you should get an automatic entry into the majors for winning a Liv event.
Oh, well, I agree with him 100%. Obviously, the live event is a very prestigious.
You're fired.
It's a very prestigious league.
I don't have any firing ability, but you're fired for that. That is absurd, and I just tweeted out. They said, "Do you agree with Kevin Na?" And I just wrote, "No."
No. Well, wow, very good. Very
good tweeting right there,
yeah.
folks. You gotta love it. Come on.
No. Next one, LSU baseball has 8 freshmen in the perfect game top 75. Most talented team in the country. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it.
Leave it alone.
I think I gotta go A&M there still. You might be able to line LSU up 1-40 and be better than A&M. You can't line LSU and A&M up 1-8 and do it. That's the problem. They've obviously got some studs coming back with Grahovic and Laviolette, and somehow they were able to convince Brian Prager to come back, which I don't understand how the Angels botched that. But that's not really of my concern today. LSU's got a really talented baseball team. They got a great freshman class that's come in. Jay Johnson is relentless on that trail, and I'll get a little taste of baseball next week. This day next week, Thursday of next week, is the first pitch banquet. I'll be doing a little emceeing there with some of the players, so that'll be enjoyable. But we're not quite there just yet.
The last one, 30-degree mornings are more tolerable than 104-degree afternoons. I think I know you're going to go on this one.
Of course know I'm going to go on this.
Yes, I mean.
Leave it alone.
Thank you for that. I didn't even have to say it. But as I said, I went out this morning. So here was my attire for my run at 5:40 this morning. Went with the joggers, just as the pants. I had on a full cold Under Armour, a T-shirt, and then my buddy is the head basketball coach at Bossier Parish Community College, and he gave me this hooded sweatshirt that I think I could go on Antarctic retreats with it. It's so heavy. And I put that on with the hood up, and then this beanie my mom got me for Christmas that's got a headlight on the front of it. And I was okay. It was tolerable with that much on. But I get into the house and it's shedding layer after layer. I don't know how these people in Chicago do that for
either.
8 months. It's a lot. But
It is.
And the other people that I want to question, I'm trying to get some cardio in, get a little run in, so I don't have to do it in the afternoon. I can hang out with Myers or something. There was a couple walking their dog in my neighborhood at 5:40. It was 29 degrees. That is...
Also, isn't it still dark at 5:40?
Very much dark.
Yeah.
That's why I got the headlight on the beanie.
That's a bit much to be. The dog.
It's just walking the dog.
Yeah, that's a bit much, maybe.
I get that in July when it's warm out and you want to beat the heat, but it's freezing out there.
Yeah, that's. But I have to say, Hunt, we have to commend you on your dedication to getting out there, even when it's cold in the morning.
It was
30
cold.
degrees.
I did not run from December 21st through January 6th.
Well, I don't think that had more much to do with the weather as opposed to
no, that was
other
just
factors.
the way that it was. It just wasn't going to happen. But got to get back to it here in the new year. So we got at it this morning. It's too cold. And those of you that complain in August, you will never hear me do that. But I will complain in January and February because it's too cold and I don't like it. And I'm thinking about moving to Miami.
Oh, wow. Really?
No, but
Okay.
I like their weather better. That'll do it. Take it or leave it here on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's. Open the show up today, talking about the new era that is coming in college football. Dellinger's got an awesome piece at Yahoo. I highly suggest y'all go read it. But I gave my thoughts on what it means for the NCAA and, more importantly to me, what it means for LSU. Luke Johnson joined us at 1:15 talking Saints coaching search. You can find that wherever you find your wherever you have your audio for Hunt on Saints. Notre Dame Penn State pick. I got the Nittany Lions. Carson Beck to the portal. We talked about it at the end of hour number 1. Dennis Allen spoke with Jay Glazer. That sound up at 2 o'clock. That's wherever you find your audio. Hunt on Saints. Voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, and then some LSU football talk with Tamarcus Cooley in town. Go find that audio wherever you find your audio. Hunt Palmer Show. We're done for today. Back tomorrow for a Friday edition. Matt's going to drive you home on AFR. Stay warm out there. The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been rocking and rolling at Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years. If you do something for 40 years, you probably know what you're doing. They do at Boudreaux's Electrical Service. They're a certified Generac generator dealer, a premier Generac generator dealer. That means they're in the top 3% nationwide in Generac generator distribution. They do all their installations with the highest quality in tubing and wiring, and most of that installation is done underground. We take pride in what our house looks like. You want that generator, but you don't want it to be an eyesore. It's not. With the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call. I give you these numbers every single day. 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389. That is the Gonzales location, 225-300-9389. Or I give you the easy way every single day. Just check them out online. It's boudreauxelectrical.com. That is boudreauxelectrical.com.